Welcome back to another Future Lab episode, an Ohio X podcast where we're talking with different leaders from across the Ohio tech sector doing amazing things. And we certainly have one today. We have Dan Snyder, who is the co founder and CEO of Lower. As I mentioned, the co founder and CEO of Lower, which is a multi channel fintech aimed at helping consumers build wealth through home ownership. Dan was named the #4 CEO in the country by Glassdoor in 2021, and his leadership style has led to multiple local and national Best Places to Work awards. Lower is the naming rights partner for the Columbus Crew's new stadium, Lower.com Field, and they also hold the record for the largest Series A investment in Ohio history. Dan loves helping his own people grow and uses a promote from within approach to the company. Dan, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Yeah, well, let's kind of dive into it. Tell us about Lower, if you could. What is people in Central Ohio, Lower.com Field have probably been hearing a ton about your company. But for those listening in other parts of the state or maybe elsewhere across the U.S., tell us a little bit about Lower, what you all do, and the work that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be glad to. So we had a little bit of an atypical, I think, journey to get to this point of where we raised our Series A and kind of off and running. We, my co-founders and I, all had various stints in the mortgage banking industry. We saw how confusing and disjointed it was, and so 8 years ago we started the company with the same mission of how do we make it simple? How do we unlock the opportunity for consumers across the country to buy homes? But we did it through, just running a good business, good people, make it, investing our profits into the business. We never went and raised any venture capital. So we grew it, doubled it year over year, went through ups and downs like any startup would, but ultimately got to a place where, we were at the size, we saw some of the opportunity, we saw what some of our competition was doing, whether it be Rocket, SoFi, some of the other players. And we knew that at some point our individual balance sheet wasn't going to propel the business as it should be on our mission to be number one. And so we, went out, we looked at what are the opportunities. We were really particular on who we'd go out and raise some money from. We had never done it before. So we can't, that's why I say atypical. A lot of people that I'm sure you talk to from the tech sector start with raising a seed round, then a Series A and B. By the time they're we're probably a late stage Series A. By the time they're here, they're very used to investor presentations and decks and boards and getting used to running the business. We're almost flip-flopped. So we've gone from, a handful of folks to, over 1,500, 2,000 employees across the country. And, we're running a great business. And now we're really blessed. It's a great timing for us to have Excel as our venture capital partner, our first kind of outside investment in. And they have a ton of experience with other, not just fintech, but technology companies and connecting them into places to help them grow and move their mission faster. And that's, so it's been great so far.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that it's kind of the atypical journey for tech and at least kind of the common general perception, because I think, you talk to a lot of founders and some first time ones that are just starting their business and they're maybe having trouble raising because they've never done it before, or, being overlooked a bit because they're in a place like in Ohio. But it's cool to see kind of the reverse approach to show that there are a lot of ways to go about it and still find success and still kind of get the recognition that you all have done, which is, I think an incredible part to it. Talk a little bit, and you started to mention about your, mortgage financial services background. That was something I found fascinating. You've been at, you've been at Wells Fargo, American Bank before going out and kind of starting that entrepreneurial route. So you had that normal job in the financial services sector, which, a ton of Ohioans do. There's JP Morgan here. There's Huntington, Key Bank up in Cleveland, Fifth Third. And since there's all these businesses with a lot of people that probably have ideas that could bring innovation to the space, whether they're going to do it within the company itself, or maybe one day think to start something like that. So what was your kind of process from, typical kind of big bank to starting out on the entrepreneurial side?
Yeah, I think personally, I was always maybe hard to keep caged up, as a young employee. I mean, I had a lot of great bosses that I learned a lot from, but you know, I, I think it really started with you work at Wells Fargo. It's such a giant company, and you right then you can start learning. Are you cool with the way it's always been done, or do you want to like break free? And there's a lot of big companies, and I wouldn't say we're at the length of Wells Fargo, but we try really hard to not get stuck into what we've always been doing and try to continuously improve because as we bring in a lot of new people, they're going to have new ideas and they're going to bring in their own culture in our company. We have to listen to them. Otherwise, you end up with like losing a lot of talent. I think you lose talent when you're too maybe like set in your ways. And so a place like Wells, they're kind of set in their way. They have the map already created. So I left there. I went to a more entrepreneurial place called American Bank, where my co-founder Mike actually was at too. And so he and I, like built that business up, under the framework where, it was entrepreneurial, but we weren't in charge ultimately. And it was a great, great bank. It was a great experience. We had a lot of learning there, but ultimately, the where our mission was, where our vision was, I think, his aligned with mine. Like we want to do it our own, and we like just felt like it'd be better off just to start from scratch, and that's what we did. And it was 8 years ago, which it seems like yesterday. So weird, but like we grew it just fundamentally. Like and this is my big advice to a lot of entrepreneurs. Like you have to have a business model that will ultimately make you money. Otherwise, your money will run out. The investors won't provide money back to you. You have to have a pathway. It might not be out of the gates. We weren't as profitable as we are today, obviously in year one, but there was a pathway to profitability. And I think that's a really important fundamental, no matter what you're doing. So, it went from seeing what the big companies are doing to then starting our own and then being on the lookout, making sure that we don't repeat those same mistakes that are so easy to do, where you get riddled in bureaucracy and politics. And it's like, I feel like most of my job is spent, trying to break those walls down as they start building up inside of even an entrepreneurial, fast growing fintech like Lower.
Yeah. If you could, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because you said it's, I think, 1,500 or to 2,000 folks kind of nationwide now. Columbus or New Albany, the headquarters. How as a leader, as a CEO, are you handling that next step of the growth? So you continue innovating, you continue building because there's so much runway still to go, but at the same time, you're no longer that small startup that you and your co-founder started 8-10 years ago.
Yeah, I think there's this, I think it's important to be focused. So if you have a mission that you're really fighting for, it's easier to lock into that. Ours is to unlock wealth for consumers through home ownership. And so we can kind of anchor into that. Now, how our customers interact with us is a bit like different. And you could say, if you look an outsider looking in, like we have multiple channels. And you could say, why don't you focus on just one channel only? Why not exclusively digital? Why not exclusively wholesale? And we do a number because we're not trying to determine how the customer should work with us. So they work with us through a direct consumer, lower.com, through our app, our website. We have a really robust channel partner retail division that, has, great folks across the country that have networks of realtors and builders, and their customers are looking for a platform to help them get a loan easily. So they work with us. We have a digital platform that will allow other fintech companies to tie into our platform and then use our mortgage product. And so, like, however the customer wants to do business, we're going to be there for them. And as a company that's fairly sizable, we need to kind of deploy all of those business driving levers to continue to increase our business. Like, so, but we're careful on not getting too distracted. I think a lot of companies can, like, especially as you raise money or new opportunities come, and so it's constantly a battle of, all right. And we just got done with our annual planning, and we always set, okay, what's the 3 or 4 year picture we want to nail, and then what's the year plan, and then we break that down into quarters, and then those quarters are broken down into our leadership groups, and then we say, okay, laser in on those big deliverables each quarter for you to hit your plan, the company to hit theirs. So it can be done, but there's a lot of there's a lot of learning along the way of how to
Yeah.
be better.
For sure. And you said your leadership planning will happen in, up to the 3 to 4 year chunks. So what does lower look like 3 to 4 years from now, or even in the next decade? Big momentum is, as I read off, the biggest Series A in Ohio history, a big milestone, lower.com field, which has been hosting some pretty big soccer matches recently, which is really
Yeah.
cool. The national team. So what does that 3 to 4 or up to 10 year look like when you think about it?
Well, I mean, we really want the consumers, as they're entering into their home journey, to think of Lower as like the destination, like where they would download our app, go to our site, and it will help navigate them. I think that when you think about what is a home, it's a community. We want to be a community to anybody that's curious, that doesn't want to rent forever. And then how do we do that? How do we build it? And then you think about our various channels, and, from a direct to consumer, it's fairly obvious, but we want to, if you think about the future of real estate, if we want to get to that point, like the future of real estate will be the mortgage transaction, which is our core product. We're experts at it. Is still more than likely going to be complicated and incredibly specific. I mean, like whether you're the type of income, the type of home you buy, the type of situation you're in, like the assets you have or don't have. You think about, how does cryptocurrency fit into this whole thing? It's going to be a complicated mess. Our job, what I believe is going to happen, is the home buying and selling process will become nearly frictionless at the point of sale. So you'll buy your house in cash, buy your next house in cash, and then you'll clean it up behind the scenes with the home financing. And we're going to look to own all of that aspect so that we can, we can help you, Chris. We'll buy your house in cash, so you have certainty before you go and buy your next house. Buy your next house, and then over the next month or so, we can clean it all up in that mortgage construct and set up a payment. And it doesn't have to be a stressful situation for you. Like, I think that's where things are going to be heading, into where you're seeing more digital one-stop shops. The technology is enabling these things to happen, and full stack lenders like ourselves are in a really good position to take advantage.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to ask about Ohio and your thoughts, because did you grow up in Ohio? And I think you went to Ohio University, I saw. So are you originally from the state?
I'm an Ohio homer. I am.
Okay.
I am.
All right.
Yeah, I'm from Akron, or Silver Lake, which is like northeast Ohio.
I grew up in Greene, so
yeah, there you go.
Kind of the other side of town. But there's been a lot of momentum. The big Intel news, which is going to be one of your new neighbors, semiconductor. There's these growth and startup. There's a lot of momentum, which historically, again, isn't the case for a lot of places outside Silicon Valley or Seattle or New York City, Boston, depending on what type of maybe sector folks are in. But what is your building a company like this, a FinTech that's doing, really, pushing and kind of owning this space as you've been talking about? What has it been like building it in your home state versus, has there been that draw or the kind of maybe pressure, maybe certainly at the beginning, or as you're starting to raise funds, of, why aren't you doing this in a Miami, Florida, which is kind of a big FinTech space these days, or Silicon Valley or New York City, certainly. So if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about like the Ohio angle to all this.
I think that from Ohio, Columbus or all of Ohio, to me, it's similar to, like, I always had a chip on my shoulder. I mean, I didn't go to an Ivy League. I grew up great parents and family, but never rich. It's always a chip on my shoulder to try to prove something.
Yeah.
And I there's a correlation there with where we are with Lower and where we are with Ohio. Ohio has like something to prove. New Albany, something to prove. Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati. So there's always this. We can do it just as good as you can do it, and I think that's the edge that has really propelled Ohio to like land these like landmark deals. Let alone New Albany landing the like where Intel's saying they're going to build the biggest like silicon plant manufacturing on the planet in New
Yeah.
Albany, Ohio. It's pretty wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen without like, I mean, if you are in a location where you have tons of deal flow and you just are entitled, or you think it's going to come to you, like maybe it is going to come to you, but like that's why we love Columbus, Ohio. Yeah. Now that said, I also think that there's a whole labor play. I mean, like we have, because we've really kind of grown this over the last 8 years, we've locked into a lot of leaders in Ohio. We've locked a lot of leaders in the DC area, in the Carolinas. I mean, and as we expand, it's very much expansion to get more consumers in other in other markets. But like from a labor perspective, it's really important for us. I mean, like we don't just open up a location or bring on a group because we love the market or the city. We do it because we love the people, and the people are what propel us forward. So like,
that's a big aspect. And I love the chip on the shoulder. And I think that's a great analogy of, it's kind of cool with the Intel, and there's some others like it of, historically it's been a manufacturing state, but there was a really rough stretch for lots of places in the US that overseas and sending jobs, but this kind of resurgence, but doing it with, semiconductors and chips and electric batteries in northeastern Ohio outside of Youngstown. And so I think that's a great way to put it, of that chip, something to prove, but then also, we have the resource, we have the education centers that hopefully, make it easier for companies like you to hire, and just a pipeline of people. And also there's a lot of just state pride for being from Ohio. And it's like when the Buckeyes make their run, and it's like the Ohio against the world t-shirts that you see in the stands against Alabama. But I'd love to talk about, FinTech more specifically, because as we sit in Central Ohio, there's been this InsurTech growth where startups have been popping up, and you'll see kind of people start with one and then go to another to start something new. They come sometimes from bigger companies, they come from other startups, but a lot of success there, a lot of growth. A lot of people I've been speaking with that are, kind of equally passionate, but about FinTech, have been trying to talk about how, what are the lessons learned in that aspect, that perhaps on the FinTech side to get more businesses like yours, and to, kind of build that hub, whether it's Columbus specific, Central Ohio specific, or, even that kind of the I-71 pipeline from Cleveland to Cincinnati. But I'd love to hear your kind of thought on it, or, in this day and age, these types of virtual economy, like, does that matter anymore? So I don't know if you have any thoughts about FinTech specifically and building up that part of Ohio.
Yeah, I think the ability to work remote really unlocks the Ohios of the world, whether you to work for a company headquartered in Ohio, or or to start a company in Ohio. I mean, like more so than it makes it easier to raise money. You don't have to. I think that candidly, one of the reasons we didn't raise money before was I just couldn't picture like spending hours or months on the road, like going down in Silicon Valley trying to raise money. So now you can do it via Zoom. You can talk to 10 investors in like a day. It makes it a lot easier. I don't look at it like any other business. I mean, FinTech, popular name. I mean, when we started our company, it wasn't even really a name, and as the technology and the rails are created for, new businesses to issue a insurance product within 60 days to 6 months, when it would have taken, a company in the 50s or 60s a decade. It's just, that's the evolution. Same thing with us. I mean, we have, as Robinhood or Coinbase have like launched, new products, banking products, etc. The rails are there to do it efficiently, easy. It's the consumers, it's trusted, it's secure. and they've benefited from it. And so I think that's a kind of a call out to all the big banks, the big brick and mortar one-stop shops that, you've got these digital one-stop shops like us, where you can go to our app or website and download an app. You can set up a savings account that pays 0.75, which is better than nearly everybody, in a matter of minutes. I mean, like, that's unheard of. And, it's FDIC insured, and we didn't have to go and file a whole bank charter to do it. We offer insurance through our platform. We have 33 carriers. You can go and get an insurance quote and bind it right online. And you can check your credit for free. You can set a goal to buy your house, and then we'll do the home loan. I mean, it's just amazing what you can do now with technology.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it matters the state you're in. And so therefore, when you open up, like, we talked to a lot of folks that are like, we're recruiting, and like, they grew up in Ohio as an example, and then moved to Chicago or moved to California. So you're having this like migration back. But then we get into this huge housing issue, which is like top of mind for us of now, where do you move? Where do you live? There's no homes to buy. So
yeah,
we need to solve that problem.
Yeah, it absolutely. And that's, we see a lot of that too, where people notice podcasts like these or other stuff we're up to and reach out of either they're, in the Bay Area or Chicago or New York and want to come back or just are interested in learning out more kind of to see what's happening. But yeah, it's, the housing and the home building is a difficult challenge, but we'll dive into kind of the last third of our show where we ask our guests 4 questions. Are kind of quick questions, supposed to be fun. Answers don't have to be quick, but just a fun way to get different perspectives from people that we speak to all across the state. And so, the first one, and we've dug into some of them today. But what is a challenge you're working to solve? And it's certainly the business of itself, but even within the business. So you mentioned kind of the company scaling. So this could be specific tech related, something, as a CEO, you're really focused on this year after doing your planning. But what's a challenge that you are working to solve, big or small?
Yeah, I mean, like, we're always on this challenge. Like, we're always trying to solve the challenge of how do we make the mortgage process simpler for our customer. And then when you unpack, okay, well, how do you do that? There's a bunch of hurdles you have to meet and check off in order to do it. So that's one big challenge. The other challenge is just this, I think, making sure that we're supporting our people as best we possibly can in an environment that's still really, really rocky. I mean, you're still dealing with COVID. Everyone's got COVID. You're still dealing with in or out of the office, new people starting. How do you train them appropriately? How do you, how do you help them deal with their own lives? And we're definitely not perfect at it. We try to be as best as we possibly can, but it's an ongoing challenge of just trying to like meet the expectations that all of our team members have about what it's like to work at our company. Yeah, I mean, it's, and then trying to beat the competition, which it's always fun.
Yeah, great answer. Question number 2: what is a favorite read, listen, or watch? It can be a book, a podcast, a show, business related, or something to get your mind off of work.
Okay, so on the business related, there's a new book called Amp It Up by Frank Slootman, the CEO of Snowflake. I mean, it's fantastic. Kind of old school, goes back to like the core business principles of how to run a successful company, how to lead a great team, and not, it's really good. Great listen. He's been on a bunch of podcasts recently, so I'm a big admirer of him. Watch, gosh, like, so somebody said Cobra Kai, and my wife and I were like, this is like a child's show, but it's actually pretty good. So like, we've been watching that a little bit.
That's awesome. That's on Netflix, right?
It is, yeah.
Like a revamp or something.
You got like Ozark and the classics,
yeah,
that you obviously watch, but like who would have known? And it's actually pretty entertaining.
That's funny. That's a good one. All right. So question number 3. So we'll take what you're currently doing off the table, but if you had to solve a societal problem, or you see a business problem that you've always thought about, but what's a problem you'd solve or a business or a nonprofit that you would start if you had all the funding in the world? We say, $100 million check. So something kind of big, aspirational. What would it be for you?
Well, so uh, if I could solve anything, well, I have two things. I can't pick. So I have, um, I think this housing inventory is a real issue.
Yeah,
I don't think there's enough motivation for builders that are home builders to be as aggressive. I think that a higher return to create rental properties. I
mhm,
think. I mean, like for the first time in U.S. history, we're in a weird spot. Over 50% of markets, major markets, it's more expensive to rent than buy a home. And for the first time in U.S. history, we've dipped under like a million homes listed. I think 900,000 was in December. It's only
yeah,
like a month and a half of inventory. So you've got this, like, forget demand. You've got this massive supply issue on the hand, so that
yeah,
it's locking up all these first time home buyers because the sellers are too afraid to sell. Because you
yeah.
sell your house, what are you going to do? Go be
Where are you
homeless?
going to
No,
go?
you're not going to go anywhere. So I would, if I had $100 billion, I would create some level of like, we'd build all these homes up in, maybe up in space, and then we'd airlift them down into lots, and then for
Mm,
like very inexpensive, and people would then have homes and yards, and because there's plenty of land to build on,
yeah,
there's just not enough. Like the logistics is issue, like getting the
yeah,
lumber out there, and like the contractors, and like it's just not,
yeah,
home building is a hard thing to scale. And so I
yeah,
feel like that's a great thing to solve.
yeah.
And then the other
Absolutely.
thing with like a blank check, uh, like trying to, cure society's like anxiety and depression somehow. I just know so many people that suffer from it, and it would just be great to, solve that. If you were giving me an unlimited check, I don't know how to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, no, but both good answers, and very important ones at that. So, fourth and final one, favorite place in Ohio. So this could be, where you head to on a weekend or something you like to do, or as you're recruiting new people to the team at Lower, you're showing off New Albany, you're showing off Ohio. Where are you taking people? What are you doing? Favorite place?
So, I mean, it'd be like such a boring answer if I said my house. I love my house. I like my home. Like we built a home, and like during the pandemic. So for 2 year, like year and a half, I lived in an apartment with my two kids,
Oh
and
wow.
we had like a one bedroom and a den, and it was pretty. I was like, how could you ever rent after this? Like,
Yeah.
um, so I think my home. The other thing, I would say New Albany is beautiful. I love New Albany.
Hmm.
The golf club, the town. I love it. So
Yeah.
that's probably, it's hard to pick. I mean, I
It
love
is.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, I
No.
love, like, you know what? Like our go-to is like walking, go to the short north for a nice dinner
Yeah.
and a hotel. We bring in outside guests. I mean, um, they love it. They can't believe it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's it's like, holy smokes, this is what this is.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love New Albany, it's not exactly, we're up here in, we have like quite a campus, and it's
Hmm.
um, the old Bob Evans headquarters, and it's kind of rolling hills and farmland,
Yeah.
and that's what they expect. So when we take them downtown, they're like, "Oh, okay, wow, this is like San Francisco.
Yeah.
This is
Well, and
really cool."
I think that's one of the upsides of living in Columbus or Cleveland or Cincinnati is that you can have that mix of the vibrancy of a downtown or places like the Short North or over the Rhine in Cincinnati, but then 15 minutes out, you can have those rolling farmlands and have space and kind of have it all in one spot, and then also great job opportunities
Yeah.
from a lot of companies that have been around and those that are being built.
So my top five: my house, New Albany. Oh, I forgot Lower.com Field. I was
Okay.
like probably the
Yeah, well,
best.
no, that was the I forgot about that too. That was the easiest layup.
I know, probably the best stadium, like, experience
Yeah,
that I've ever been to, and I'm not being a homer. Like, they
yeah,
built, I didn't have anything to do with anything. We had the easy part of just partnering on the name. They
yeah,
built a amazing venue. I mean, it's incredible. So those are my top 3.
yeah. And I with Lower.com Field, which I went to the Costa Rica qualifying game when it was warm. And as we're recording this, there's another one coming up. We won't date it, but I love how they put it in such a cool part of town. And I know they'll be building up around it, but I'm in Grandview. So we walked to the game, walked home from the game. Before the game, we actually started out in the arena district where everyone was at. So you can like have it all. And it was just a cool like landing spot for all of this. And then you go in, and that was my first time back in, I guess, late summer, early fall, and it was just, I mean, it was great. I mean, one of the coolest in stadium experiences you said, like out there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had never been to a game, even at the Old Crew Stadium before,
Yeah.
like that. And when the opportunity came up, we went through it like, okay, do we like the owners? Yes. Have they built a
Mhm.
good product? Is it in a good location? And does the
Yeah.
city want it? There's going to be attendance? Yes. And then, what's our long-term trajectory in Columbus? And we felt like strong, we're going places. So it just all lined up.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with and now I'm like a big fan, a
Yeah.
huge fan of the team. And now I've gotten to know it. And it's just, and everyone had told me ahead of time, like, wait until you go to your first game. Like, it's going to
Yeah.
blow your mind. And I think that's what the location does. It allows more people
Yep.
to access it and give it a shot. And then you just get hooked. So
Yep.
they did a great job at that.
Yeah, they really did. And for those that haven't been there, and I know Cincinnati has a great new soccer stadium too. It's cool and highly recommended. Well, Dan, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing your story, Lower's story. Anything we didn't mention or get to that you want to share?
No, it's all
Okay.
good. I appreciate you, what you're doing. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate you listening. The show notes will have more information about Dan and Lower. You can scroll down, click off, and check them out. But we appreciate you watching, you listening. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye bye.